Today's video is going over the encounter challenge for the final boss, Ornery Hourglass. For this challenge, everyone on your team must dunk a Chronon through the hoop to start the damage phase, or in other words, one dunk per person to get to the total of 6 dunks that you need. Now we tried a few different strategies, and there's definitely a lot of ways you can get this done, but I think the way we ended up with is one of the smoothest with the least amount of swapping required. Starting with the same strategy as normal, with 2 dunkers, 2 stunners, 1 bomb color caller, and 1 absolute player, the encounter can proceed as normal. I have a whole video going over every single role in detail that I'll link in the description, but the TLDR is absolute buff calls out the hoop color, the bomb caller points out matching colored bombs, dunkers confirm whether or not they are glowing, and if they are, absolute shoots the bomb to drop the Chronon. Then make sure that both dunkers get a Chronon, then have them jump through the hoop simultaneously to finish the first 2 dunks, and here is where the changes start. First, note that if you are doing battalions at the same time as this challenge, you're going to want to deal with the wyverns that spawn on the plates first. Then you'll need to switch plates, with one of your dunkers going to the left plate and stun until damage phase, while the other will go to the middle plate and become the absolute player through until the damage phase. In return, one of your original stunners and your original absolute player will go to the right plate and become the new dunkers for the second set of dunks. I will do a walkthrough of this using a numbered chart at the end of this video for those who are more visual learners. Once everyone has their new buff by standing on the plates, you can proceed again as normal. Note that the other stunner and bomb caller do not need to stand on the plates for this round, as they will be keeping the same buff for now. After these 2 new dunk players get their second set of 2 dunks, again kill the wyverns if doing battalions first, then switch buffs again. This time the second stunner and the bomb color caller will switch to the right plate as the final dunkers, while the 2 players who were just dunking will go to the left plate, with one becoming a stunner and the other becoming the bomb caller for the final round. Do note that here, the middle aka absolute plate player will need to stand on the middle plate in order to make sure that the others can get their new buffs, even though they are keeping the same buff. Also, just a note for this challenge as a whole is to make sure to always go for the stun first. So if you see the boss charging up to stun, go for that stun first with your current stun players before trying to jump on any plates, as that will make it a lot easier so you don't have to worry about the boss trying to beam you while you're standing on a plate. Basically go for the stun if you see it coming first before you try to do the swaps. Once the last 2 players do their dunks, you'll be at damage phase, which is exactly the same as normal, and do note that if your absolute player accidentally shoots the wrong bomb at some point during the encounter and you end up losing sand and end up needing more dunks, you can save this by having these same 2 players dunk again for a 4th round without causing any issues. So basically just keep your same groups and have everybody in the same position as they were in for the 3rd round into an extra 4th round, as this challenge seems to work similarly to the Hobgoblin challenge, where you just need to have everyone do the mechanic once and then it resets. After the damage phase, you'll be able to start from the beginning with the same flow and repeat for a 2nd round to defeat the boss and complete the challenge. So as promised, here's a kind of visual walkthrough of the positions and what each player is going to do in this challenge. At the top here is pretty much just showing each player and what their roles are going to be throughout the encounter. So basically players 1 and 2 will be your main stunners. Player 3 is going to be your bomb color caller for the first 2 rounds. Player 4 will be a backup stunner. Player 5 will be absolute in the first round and the bomb color call out in the final round. And player 6 will be your absolute player for the 2nd and 3rd rounds. Basically, these are going to be the roles that each player has to do outside of the round that they're obviously going to have to dunk in, because everybody has to dunk. Now again, it doesn't really matter how you order this or who does what, but in order to break it down a little bit further, for round 1, you're going to have players 1 and player 4 be your stunners. You'll have player 3 be your bomb color callout for that round. You'll have player 5 be your absolute player, and then players 2 and 6 will be your dunkers. Then after you do the round, everybody's got to switch positions, or at least some people have to switch positions. Basically, players 1 and 5, again, one of your stunners and your absolute player from round 1 will go over to the right side and go to that right plate. You'll have player 6, who was originally one of the dunkers, go to middle for absolute, and you'll have player 2, again, one of your original dunkers, go to the left to become a stunner for the rest of the encounter. So technically, again here, players 3 and 4 do not need to switch, and they do not need to even necessarily be on the left plate at all, as long as player 2 does so. Then again, after round 2, and you get your 4 dunks at that point, you'll need to do your final swap in terms of getting your final 2 players over the right side plate. That's players 3 and 4. They, again, were the original ones for rounds 1 and 2. They stayed still, and then for round 3, they go to the right side. Again, player 6 can stay in middle for this round. Again, they will need to go onto the middle plate to make sure that these other players can get the buffs, though, that need to be swapped, because if you don't stand on all 3 plates simultaneously, no buffs get actually, acquired by anybody, and you can't end up swapping the buffs. So this player does still need to get back on the middle plate for this round. Again, it doesn't even know that there's, keeping the same buff. And then again, the people that just dunked in round 2s, players 1 and player 5, they will both go to the left side plate, 1 becoming the stunner again, just like they were in round 1, and player 5 becoming the bomb color callout for the final round. Now again, note here that this does have, at least as far as I could find, the least amount of swapping and the least amount of having to have multiple people doing 3 different jobs. So for example, player 2 starts as a dunker and then as a stunner for the final 2 rounds. Player 3 is the bomb color callout for the first 2 rounds and then as a dunker for the final round. So again, both of those players only swap once. Player 4 only swaps once. They're a stunner for the first 2 rounds and dunks in the final round. And then player 6 is a dunker in the first round and is the absolute player for the final 2 rounds. So those 4 players only need to make 1 swap at any point and are only doing 1 other job other than dunking, which is the minimum possible because everybody has to dunk. Now there will be 2 players that have to do a little bit more swapping in this, at least the way that I organized this. Player 1 is going to have to go from stunning the first round to being a dunker and back to stunning. So again, they're still only doing 2 jobs, but that does make them swap twice technically. They go from stunning to dunking back to stunning, and then 1 player will have to do kind of all 3. Technically there's 4 jobs, but all 3 sides at some point in this strategy. That's actually the job I ended up doing for these, for these runs and for figuring out this strategy and such. But basically this player 5, is going to start at absolute, then become the dunker for round 2, and then be a bomb color callout for round 3. So again, if some people maybe don't know every single role, that is technically okay. Again, everybody needs to know how to dunk. But even if you only know one of the other roles, you can kind of fill in which spot you may know the best. If you're more comfortable with stunning, more comfortable with doing the absolute buff, more comfortable with doing the bomb color callouts, there are roles for just knowing one of those possibilities. But technically, again, 1 person will need to kind of do a mix of all 3. And that's all for today. I hope this video was helpful. I know it's super duper late. I got very behind, and yep, we finally got it out. We do have 1 more video I want to make on the raid that is also going to be super duper late before the epic raid comes out, and then we'll start making content on that hopefully here near the end of September. But as always, thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful day.